This is the WGBH Forum Network.
I'm deeply flattered to be invited to come speak to you. Asking a lawyer, even a recovering lawyer, to speak is always a bit dangerous. But after 6 months on the job as an apprentice CEO, I can tell you that I'm learning a lot, but still have a lot to learn. Actually, when Neil Williams asked me to consider the job, he described it, as only Neil would do, as a great opportunity to save on my taxes. I'm among dear friends here, and I will tell you, and maybe repeating myself, that in this opportunity, being asked to do this, I've never been more flattered and at the same time more frightened about anything in my life. Leading an organization that embraces world-class music, art, theater, and also world-class ambitions requires a climb up a pretty steep learning curve. Yet I'm frankly privileged to have the opportunity to work with corporate, community, and elected leadership on things I feel are of great importance to the future of our city and our state. And the bonus is I don't have to keep timesheets. But I'm particularly grateful for the encouragement that so many of you have given to me in my new role. This is not surprising because, frankly, many of you in this room have supported the Woodruff Arts Center for many years. Frankly, your leadership and your continued generous financial support have built the Woodruff Center as both a memorial to past tragedies and to our shared dreams for the future. With your help, the center has enjoyed tremendous growth in size and stature. In just the past few years, the campus footage has grown by 31%, adding more than 280,000 square feet. We have new space for visual, performing, and education. In size, the Woodruff Center is now the third largest performing arts center in the country. Our earned and contributed revenues place us as the number 2 among the arts centers. We have collected more than now, I think, 26 Grammys, which is more than all of other Atlanta's recording artists combined. We have opened major theatrical productions on our stages that have moved to Broadway with great success, plays like Driving Miss Daisy, Aida, The Color Purple, and soon, for those of you I hope saw it, Sister Act. Our unprecedented 3-year series of exhibits from the Louvre in Paris have generated, frankly, national envy and a fair amount of flack in the French press. Why would our children be going to Atlanta? And so in recent years, we have seen a 30% increase in our ticket sales, and with Beecham Carr's leadership and your support, a significant 59% increase in giving towards our annual campaign. I will tell you that the Woodruff Center serves as an economic driver in this community, stimulating the growth not only of Midtown, but of the entire region, casting a worldwide spotlight on Atlanta and adding hundreds of millions of dollars annually to Georgia's economy. We are also the largest provider of support to adding arts experience in Georgia schools. Let me repeat that. We are the largest single provider of support for arts experiences to our Georgia public schools. Young Audiences is delivering over 7,000 programs annually to students across Georgia. With the parade of yellow buses that I get to see and the various youth programs from our 4 divisions, the High Museums programs, the Alliance Theater's education programs, the Symphony's outreach, their youth symphony, and other programs, we touch children in schools nearly 1 million times a year, and over the last 5 years in more than 100 counties. Yet, frankly, it is a struggle year to year to make ends meet. Large or small, artistic success is no guarantor of financial success. And with the cost rising faster than our ability or, frankly, our desire to raise prices, we face significant challenges in maintaining what we have achieved, never mind growing. Next year, we will celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Memorial Arts Building that you heard was opened in 1968 as a tribute to those who died in the Orly tragedy. But But the Memorial Arts Building is now a 40-year-old building that has had 2 facelifts. It was built as a multipurpose auditorium and a theater. And while these have supported and nurtured the growth of both the Symphony and the Alliance Theater, they are now hardly worthy of either. But the existing hall could be reconfigured for better use by others, including the ballet or the opera, and for traveling shows with amplified sound. But on its own, that hall is not going to attract people to come to Atlanta. And so we are pursuing a vision of a new center for both music and education designed by Santiago Calatrava. We are looking to see how we can sustain excellence in music and also support elementary and higher education in Georgia. We've made terrific progress with great leadership within this community. More than $110 million have been pledged to this, but we have a long way to go, and we will need public funding support to get there. To date, the existing facilities of the Woodruff Center have been paid for entirely with private contributions. There is not a dime of public money in the capital structures. Now, that is both a tribute to the strength of our private commitment to the arts in our community and a distressing challenge to further progress. I'm aware of no major performance venue that has been built in modern times without at least 1/3 public funding. This necessary support is found in the Kimmel Center in Philadelphia, the Meyerson in Dallas, the Disney in Los Angeles, the new halls in Nashville and Miami, and even closer to home, the Riverfront Project in Columbus, Georgia, and the Cobb Energy Center. So what is the problem? The problem is simply that support of the arts and the use of arts in education is not something for which the state of Georgia has been able to muster the political will to spend public money. There's a clear understanding the arts are important, but they are not what we spend public money for. That's what people who can afford it ought to go do. State funding for the arts has dropped every year since 2002, and currently Georgia is 43rd among all the states in the per capita spend. We are dead last among the southern states. We no longer have a professional arts administrator in the Department of Education. We do not have performance standards for arts in our schools. For every 600 elementary school children in the state provides a choice of one of 3 options: a music teacher, an art teacher, or a PE teacher. Choose one for every 600 children. Now let me be clear. This is not a good guy, bad guy problem. There are no villains. Indeed, there are a lot of heroes in our state, in our legislature, and around the state. The students and parents would like arts in the schools. Teachers and administrators and politicians want our students to thrive. But as a whole, we do not see investments in arts and arts infrastructures needed to provide the arts as part of the public spend. It's not seen the way we would see building bridges or roads. This infrastructure to our future is not seen in the same way as the transportation needs of the day. Now, we know the dramatic impact of having arts and education can have on overall learning, including SAT scores. I realize that SAT scores are an imperfect measure of educational success. Yet when Georgia finds it appropriate to celebrate moving from 49th to 46th in the national SAT rankings, let's just say we have room for improvement. 2 of the top 3 public schools in the averages for SAT scores in this state, across the whole state, 2 of the top 3 are charter schools for the arts. The Davidson School in Augusta has 50% minority enrollment and over 20% eligible for free or reduced lunch. That school, which started in a warehouse 17 years ago, is the top average SAT school in the state of Georgia and beats Walton, which, by the way, is number 2, by 50 points on the average. The number 3 school is the DeKalb Decatur School for the Arts. And all of the big high schools that do well have a significant, vibrant arts education program. because these are the schools that have learned to use the arts to create a learning environment and to engage and energize students. The lesson here is clear. Arts count in education as well as economic development. It is less about education in the arts, although quality arts instruction is necessary. It is more about using the arts in education to create a learning environment and, frankly, to provide an incentive to engage in school. But note, the top schools for the SAT scores are not the charter schools for math and science. They're the charter schools for the arts. We will not improve math and reading scores merely by flogging students and their teachers to leave no child behind. We need to use the arts as a piece of the glue, as part of the bait. Now, I will tell you that I do not claim the arts are a quick fix or a silver bullet for improving education. But this is one of the most important problems Georgia faces. And the failure to use the arts as part of the mix of the tools in our schools is like trying to build a house without a hammer. You can do it, but it will be rickety and take a very long time. And time is not something we have. We are stranding generations of students in educations that, at best, prepare them for the jobs of 1980, and frankly, jobs that we are losing in Georgia at an alarming rate in this flat world. We are also losing about 40% of our students who simply drop out before they ever finish high school. Okay, so why is any of this the business of the Woodruff Arts Center? Very simply, if we cannot persuade our political leadership and find collectively the public will to invest state funds into putting arts into education in Georgia as a priority spend, we have little chance of getting the needed support for the next generation of performance venues and learning centers that will put Georgia on the map as an exciting and creative center. And ultimately, this issue impacts Georgia's ability and yours to grow business. The lack of significant public support for arts and education puts Georgia at a competitive disadvantage in the worldwide competition for talent and for the higher paying jobs and businesses that talent attracts. This is not about supporting a hobby for those who are well educated and who can afford to support the artistic interests. This is about building the Georgia infrastructure for our workforce, our civic infrastructure for education and advancement, and erecting a marquee that says Georgia is truly a collection of creative and energized communities. So, what can we do about this? I've suggested that we try a solution in K-12 similar to that which rescued higher education in Georgia. Led by Bill Todd, the Georgia Research Alliance pioneered the concept that a small, high-level, private, public, not-for-profit forum could resolve disputes and align the research focus on our research universities, both public and private. This effort to improve higher education in Georgia was also supported by Georgia students receiving Hope Scholarships from a dedicated funding source, the lottery. These steps have raised the standard, sharpened the focus, and produced dramatic results for Georgia. It took 15 years, but it is now more difficult for an Atlanta high school senior to gain admission to the University of Georgia than to Chapel Hill. The steps taken a decade ago to lay the foundation have improved the admission and performance levels of all of our university system schools, not just the research institutions. And so for this reason, I have gotten my official lobbyist badge, and I am actively supporting House Bill 291 in the current legislative session. This is a bill authored by Representative Joe Wilkinson that seeks to establish the Georgia Arts Alliance. It's a new public-private entity dedicated to support the arts and education at pre-K through 12 in the same way that we started with the Georgia Research Alliance. And like that successful alliance, the creation of the Georgia Arts Alliance will benefit Georgia residents and businesses by providing ongoing support to improve school-based arts programs, professional development of teachers and teaching artists, and create the needed infrastructure for arts and education to be delivered. Creation of the Arts Alliance would help link together existing efforts all over the state by bringing to a single table the Superintendent of Education, the head of the Georgia Council for the Arts, the Commissioner of Economic Development, with representatives of both large and small businesses, school systems, and arts organizations. It would seek to fund or get enabling funds or matching grants to individual school programs all over the state, where competitive process demonstrates local leadership, a commitment to getting something done, and the ability to raise some local financial support. It would help create and deliver programs to provide professional education and support for teachers. This is not about replacing the teachers, it's about supporting them. And it would also provide needed infrastructure programs, access, and capital infrastructure. We need to take steps to build a framework on which this can be done. It isn't an overnight fix, and it requires some time. Let me tell you that we come to a more controversial part of my suggestions, separate from House Bill 291. How are we going to pay for this? I would fund the efforts to put arts and education in the state by having the state of Georgia charge the same price that was agreed in Texas for the statewide video franchise bill that's being pushed to compete with your cable company. This statewide video franchise is essentially television over the internet, and it has been offered in about a dozen states. Let me be clear, I strongly favor granting a statewide video franchise. I think the competition would be good. But I would suggest that instead of the 5% gross revenues now proposed to be paid Georgia, that we ask for a total of 6%, which was what was paid in Texas. In my former life, I authored the Georgia broadband bill passed last session. I do not believe the video rights in Georgia are worth 20% less than in Texas. I would place this extra 1% in a fund for educational uses as permitted and limited by federal law. In this way, we might generate perhaps $10 to $12 million annually to support the effort to enrich our children's education through access to the arts. Experience with annual cable price increases does not suggest that Georgia customers are likely to be charged any less if the price of the video franchise they must pay is 5% instead of 6% as agreed by the industry in Texas. This funding suggestion is separate and is not tied to House Bill 291, and it's gotten me labeled Don Quixote in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And it well may be not possible politically, and other funding possibilities and opportunities emerging as well. Let me be clear, I welcome all available support for the arts. And I think there's a great opportunity in this time for us to be doing something. But nevertheless, with or without the 1% solution, I would ask your support of House Bill 291 to create this Arts Alliance as a first step to bringing to bear the same process that moved our system of higher education. The legislature is going to take a 2-week recess while we try to figure out what happens with Peach Care, another area in which our children are at great risk. But I would ask you to contact those that you believe care about this and to spend some time letting people know that you care about putting arts back in education. I don't really care about the detail, but the point of making it clear that this is an important tool that needs to be used, supported, and funded is important. Let me close with a simple ask. There is, in this room, collected, minus those on our spring break, the captains of our industries, the leadership of our foundation, the caretakers of our institutions. We need to summon the will to make a commitment to branding Atlanta as a creative community. If we can improve our public schools so a secretary does not have to commute 2 hours a day to find work in one place and to find affordable housing in a school system that their children can get a future with in another place, we can relieve a great deal of our traffic congestion. If we can continue to build Atlanta as a tourist destination, not just a convention city, we can continue the steady rise of the Phoenix. Now, to those who say that, well, our dreams are too big and the difficulty is too daunting and the concept of this music center, I would remind you of your reaction when you were told that we had to raise $3 billion for our sewers. When somebody stood up here and said we might host the Olympic Games, or that we needed to build a stadium before we ever had a major league ball team, or an airport before we could spell international. In each generation, there comes a time to build monuments to the future as well as the past. Now is such a time, and I ask your help. Together we cannot fail in our obligations to the future of Georgia's children, nor can we afford to. Thank you.
Joe has graciously agreed to take a couple of questions we have time for. Clyde, in the back. Oh, he's just waving at somebody. RK.
Joe, based on what Veronica said, I commend you for taking the job. And somehow we don't have the awareness in 4 years trying to bring industry to the state of Georgia. I want you to know, under the quality of life, the top 5 things when we bring industry to the state, high school education and the art facility was the negative for the state of Georgia. Somehow the legislature, which comes from the rural area, they do not connect. So find some way to connect with them. Maybe we can build some more art centers to have more awareness in the rural Georgia, because they absolutely are not aware of it's a negative to bring industry to Georgia.
Well, I agree with that. I think that when I said we have some heroes there, Tommy is here. The governor gets it. I mean, we have a lot of people over there that basically understand this connection. Ken Stewart, I'm on the Tourism Foundation. I think I'm the only performing arts representative in the Tourism Foundation. The problem is that we do not have the understanding of the connection because it isn't immediate. It isn't something you can build and suddenly see an immediate dramatic change. Think about how long it's taken us with the Georgia Research Alliance to raise the tide for all the boats. But I think there is, in this room, and I realize I'm preaching to the converted, there is the willpower and, frankly, the connectivity to make this message clear. I think that it will not happen until we can demonstrate that the phones are being called here from outside Metro Atlanta to cause this to happen, which is why I've been struggling to find a mechanism to fund the effort to do little projects all around the state. If we could have 20 or 25 successful little projects that are going all around, and there's some terrific things happening all around the state. I'm counting on what I call the Georgia high school phenomenon. Golly, if that school's got one of those, why don't we have one of those to cause this to move? But frankly, you're exactly right. As an institutional, we do not have the awareness that's needed. And I think there's an opportunity here. The stars are aligned. We may not have a chance again to do this. And so I clearly am making myself a bit of a nuisance. As I said, I was always the neutral in this telecom business. I've now gone from preaching to meddling. But I do want to take advantage of the fact that we have an opportunity now to do something great for Georgia and give credit to everybody.
Any others?
On that same theme, you showed a list of states and their support for this. Florida was near the top of the list. Even North Carolina, right in the middle of the list, with the bottom. Those are two neighboring southern states, large states with a population that's both metropolitan and rural. Have you had a chance to look at how they made progress on this?
Where progress has been made, it has always been around one thing, the leadership. Where you have people who believe strongly that the arts are an economic center, that they're an education center, that they are a marquee center, you begin to do this. Governor Hunt in North Carolina, Governor Huckabee in Arkansas. You have terrific leadership that's brought this to bear. But it's not politically safe and it's not politically sexy. And so you have to have the courage to get up and say, I am more about investing in the future than I am about just trying to do something. And building the infrastructure necessary to deliver arts into education, to help make it part of the learning environment, is not as sexy as buying band uniforms, and it isn't going to be a trip to the Macy's parade, but it is the kind of infrastructure that requires the leadership and commitment. And boy, I'll tell you what, I met the principal of that Davidson School in Augusta. She's now been retired for about 6 years. And talk about your no-nonsense principal. This is not a touchy-feely principal at all, but who basically had said, this is the way it's important, this is how we're going to do it. And that kind of leadership politically and in the school systems makes the difference.